This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. On the show, you'll hear from leading Australian business owners as they share the lessons they've learned building their companies. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques you can use to improve your business. I'm your host, Savan Tuna, and I'm a director at Alexander Spencer, and I'm really passionate about helping Australian businesses succeed. The demands of running a business often push health to the bottom of the priority list. But is neglecting your health the hidden cost of success? And could it be silently sabotaging your performance? Today we're joined by Dr. Stephen Liu, co-founder of Everlab. Everlab is transforming how executives and high performers approach health by offering a 360-degree preventative health assessment that goes beyond the standard checkup. In this episode, we'll unpack why understanding your body is crucial for peak performance, reveal the silent health risks most leaders overlook, and explore practical, evidence-based steps you can take to stay ahead of burnout and chronic disease. Let's dive in. Stephen, thank you for joining me on The Bottom Line.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So for those that don't know you, obviously you run an awesome business called Everlab. But before we get to Everlab, I'd love to get to know a little bit about you.
I'm a medical doctor. I'm one of the founders of Everlab. And before Everlab, I've actually been a doctor for a really long time. So this is my 16th year. So Melbourne trained. I started my career in hospital medicine. So I originally worked in neurosurgery, cardiothoracic surgery. Then I did advanced training in intensive care. So it's actually the polar opposite end of medicine in terms of what we're focusing on at Everlab. So Everlab is very much focused on prevention, personalised medicine, not just to keep people disease-free, not just to help people live a long time and achieve longevity, but also optimizing your function. So you can see it's actually like very opposite ends. But I did that for a very long time. I did advanced training in intensive care. And then it was halfway through that journey that I started realizing, as meaningful and I think as important as that work was, and it was also incredibly gratifying to look after the sickest people in the hospital. It really comes down to, I think this will be a theme of what we chat about today as well, but how we measure success. So in intensive care, success is very much if my patients don't die. And that's
I shouldn't
success,
laugh, but
right?
it's really sad that because it's intensive care, that's what it really
And
is.
that's the thing, right? And Australia is actually a fantastic place for intensive care. We publish incredible, global journals. A lot of guidelines also come out of Australia. We're global leaders in this space. But as an industry, it's very much focused on reactive care. So like what can we do when people get sick and what can we do when people get really sick? And there are incredible things that we can do. But if you think about it from the patient's point of view, is that your goal, right? To say, hey, I didn't die, but what's the cost of having my life saved? Often people end up with a lot of significant complications and your life's just not the same, right? So I remember seeing folks in clinic after they were successfully discharged from intensive care. And you think it's some opportunity to high five and say, hey, look, we saved your life and isn't that great? But when you see these folks, often you just have your smile wiped off your face, right? Because yes, they're living, but they have chronic pain, they have memory issues. Some folks end up with amputations from their severe illness. They have brain fog. They can't hold down a job anymore. They're on a bunch of prescription medications, and really it challenges your idea of what defines success. So that's what made the transition towards, so I left intensive care. I retrained as a specialist GP. So I retrained with the Australian College of General Practitioners, the RACGP, Royal Australian College. And I also still work there, so I'm a medical educator. I'm on a few committees there. And very much focus my career now on not just treat people when they get sick, but how do you stop people from getting sick altogether? And they go even one step further to say, how can we optimize people's function in life, whether it's cognitively, physically. And it's a combination of that actually allows people to achieve longevity, to achieve what we call health span. So not just the duration of your life, but how well you live. And to be able to give people the health that they would like to actualize their lives. So you need a lot of good health and function. It's not just to say I don't have diseases, but you want to be able to have good physical function. You want to be able to have good mental function, psychological, emotional function to do whatever it is that you want to do in life, because you only live once, and you want to have all the capital that you can to actualize your values.
I love the word capital because as accountants, love that word. It's sort of a finance thing. Having capital is having capital to invest, having capital in the bank. Are you finding that people are now more inquisitive around better health, trying to be more preventative? Is the consumer, being the general population, seeking this type of health treatment?
Absolutely. And I think it's almost a bit of a turning point, and there's a lot of factors there. I love what you said about capital as well, by the way. I love chatting with folks, accountants and, folks in finance, because there's actually so much overlap in terms of how we focus on capital as well and how we optimize that, right? So I focus on health capital, you might focus on financial capital, but it's capital nonetheless, and we should be able to maximize that for all our, patients or customers. The unusual thing about healthcare is culturally, I don't think you ever go to an accountant and the accountant goes, you're not losing money, so that's pretty good. I think you've got enough money. I don't think you have any work here to do or anything to worry about, right? Whereas in medicine, the system that we have set up is actually a reactive care system. So we wait for people to get sick and say, all right, what's wrong? So it's much less a healthcare model, more so a sick care model.
Yes, I love, yeah.
It works very well. Like in Australia, we have world-class care, but make no mistake, it is a sick care system. But I think folks need to think about their health much more like their bank accounts and say, hey, there's always a way for us to get more. If you think about your super, you really want that to be
More,
very
yeah.
healthy. It's not like, no, I'm good, right? It's not going down and I think we're okay. We really want to maximize people's capital so that, if you think about it, super fun, it might be thinking about, hey, I want to go take that holiday. I want to buy a caravan. I want to travel around Australia. I want to take my kids overseas. I want to maybe help my kids set up their lives. With health, it's actually the same. It's not just to say, I don't have diabetes, that's great. I don't have osteoporosis, that's great. Of course, those things are incredibly important. But it's actually, do I have the function to actually go on these trips with my kids? Can I pick up my grandkid and throw them in the air? And can I go traveling in my retirement? All of that actually requires health capital as well. Mm-hmm. So there is a bit of a cultural shift. And like you mentioned, more and more folks are seeking this, consuming this information and seeking services like ours at Everlab, seeking us out, because they realize actually it's not just about not being sick. It's actually about thriving. It's actually having the right amount of health capital to do it. And there is a bit of a discourse and I think cultural shift towards folks who listen to Dr. Peter Attia or have read, the books Outlive. Or following a lot of online podcasts. And I mean, some are probably, more scientific and more credible than others. But I think as a general shift, I think is really important because now folks are more focused on not just the medicine aspect, but the wellness aspect. And those things really need to go hand in hand. And there's a lot of great content out there. And I hope folks who listen to this also get something out of it. And the other thing about the cultural shift, I hope people start thinking about their health the way that they think about their financial capital, because it's actually about ROI as well, right? So it's not just about I want to accrue and you probably don't want your clients to be like, I want to check my bank account 3 times a day, right? So it's actually about making the right move so you get the biggest return on investments. So the mission of Everlab is actually we want to achieve for as many people as possible, not just the maximum longevity, but also maximum health and health span and function at the lowest lifetime cost. So that's ROI. Yeah. If all you told your clients are, hey, if you want your financial capital to go up, just work way harder and just put more, that's one way. But you're thinking of strategies to say, how can you get bigger returns on investment? By investing properly. So is there a way where you can put less cost in it but get more returns? I think about people's health in the same way, and cost for us is similar to cost to you, but there's an extra element, which is one is a financial cost, but also what are the other costs? There's time cost. There's effort cost. Yeah, if you work harder, you make more money, right? I'm sure you got a lot of surgeons as clients. So, hey, you want to make more money? Just operate more.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's not really ROI. Right? So, of course, you're making more money, but you're also putting more effort, and you have to factor that into the cost. And in medicine, we also think about what's the financial cost, what's the time cost, what's the effort and pain cost, right? Like going to the gym, there's a cost there. Like, you don't love the pain. You love the feeling afterwards. You love the outcomes. But that's a cost too. And in medicine, there's another cost, which is risk, right? So anytime any doctor comes at you with anything, right? So whether if it's a tablet, a needle, or, I put folks through a lot of scans with injections, and that all has a cost too. So how do you make these trade-offs? It's a similar way to imagine how you look after your clients' portfolios, right? So like this is how we look after folks. And I think there is a shift towards folks thinking like this. And that's our mission, to maximize people's health capital portfolio at the lowest lifetime cost.
So take us through a journey. Let's say you got a 30-year-old that's interested in making sure they're proactive rather than reactive around their healthcare. They've read Outlive, they're interested in it. They come to see you. What would the general plan be with a patient like that? Is it bloods? Is it muscle mass? Is it education? As a doctor or at Everlab, how do you treat a patient on an ongoing basis? Because one of the things in our world, especially in tax and accounting, because we've got to do tax returns every year for a client, they are clients for life as long as we do the right things. It come back every year. They've got to do their tax returns. We're talking about their profit. And it's an ongoing relationship. Take us through Everlab and an example of that 30-year-old first time seeing a patient. What's the journey going to look like for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, my commentary here is, I imagine, you give the same advice. It's never too early. It's never too early to get a checkup. Sometimes I hear folks say, hey, I went to a doctor and they said I'm too young for whatever, like insert whatever here. And that's just simply not true. There's never a time too early to start planning for your long-term health. It's never too early for financial planning either.
Yeah.
Right? So I do encourage a lot of younger folks come through, and we do have a lot of young members at Everlab as well. So if we have a 30-year-old come in, this is the sort of flow that they will come through. So number one is really about learning. And we are an annual membership program so that we can be your lifelong health partner. And you see, the more you know someone, the better decisions you can make for them. So that's why when a new person starts through with us, even before you meet your doctor, our team is already gathering up your information, much like you're pulling data from tax returns and bank statements. We're grabbing your historical records with your consent, scans you've had done before. We want to start learning you from a genetic level, what your ethnic ancestry might be. Have you had genetic testing? What's your medical history? We gather all that up, and then we work out what your goals are. I bet this sounds very similar to right? We work out what your health goals are.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a 30-year-old, your health goal might be different to someone who's like 40 or 50. So if you're a 30-year-old young female, you might think, hey, one of my health goals, of course, everyone wants to say, I want to end my life with a huge portfolio, right? Whether it's health capital or financial capital. But at this stage of my life, starting a family, that's important to me, right? At this stage of my life, having really clear thinking and not having good energy levels, that's a priority for me because I'm, early mid-career, I'm going at it hard. I'm not like Mark Zuckerberg and I can just train for jiu-jitsu 7 hours a day and, having that sort of capital. Of course, if you just throw capital at something, you can probably get good returns. But how do we make good decisions for you? It really comes down to like that data gathering. Once you come through our program, we then put you through an extended panel of blood tests, full body composition study. We do your bone density as well. And for folks who need additional testing based on your risk, we will then put you through things like CT coronary angiograms, which looks inside the arteries of your heart. And that's probably usually not for the 30-year-old. Usually it's more for like folks who are 40 plus who have risks. So it is also a customized experience based on your needs. And it all has to respond to what your personal goals are. So then it's very much like taking a data-driven approach and then coming up with the right strategy to make right insights, right strategy, then work out what those tactics are. And those tactics can be, hey, where are the biggest ROI things that we can do here? Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, like you're eating this for breakfast, you're eating this for lunch. You should flip those two things and you're going to get a better outcome. It can be very small things, but it can have really big ROIs. It's got to be very specific and nimble. It's not you're going to go through a program and say, hey, like you should buy like a $5,000 air purifier. Well, like sure, like that can be one of the tactics for you if you have like allergy and dust mite allergy. But you know what? Something simple? Wash your sheets in hot water. Like, we want to find efficient, low cost, high ROI actions for you. And then we can sequence it out to say, like, if you want a big ROI, tick off the first 5 things, but we're going to give you 10 things to do. You want to knock out the next 5 things, you're going to get more returns.
So is it like a strategic plan in terms of you do all the testing and so on and so forth based on the risk? And then do I get like a strategic plan around, okay, in the next 3 months is how you're going to eat. This is what we want you to do. How often do we then test different things? Is it based on the initial testing where we find out some high risks in bloods, we focus on areas? So it's this ongoing journey that happens. Is that sort of, you won't really know what the journey is going to look like until you get that initial assessment? Is that then what happens thereafter?
Much like you do a tax return once a year, we have a minimum proper checkup once a year, and that's certainly what we recommend, right? Even if you change accounting firms, you should still go and do that, right? We want you to do what's best for you. But for us, our protocol program, which is a year-long membership-based program, we have mid-year retesting as well. So we actually repeat the metrics that we want to see moving. So take a typical 30-year-old. They might not need to have like blood tests more than twice a year. Or they might not need to have their body composition retest more than twice a year. But there are some folks who are already diabetic and we're here to try to reverse those numbers, right? There are folks who already have plaque in their arteries who we need to take a closer look at. So it should be customized, right? Some folks need a colonoscopy in 3 years' time, right? We put that on their roadmap. Everyone gets a personalised roadmap. We put that on the roadmap. Some folks are like 5 years overdue and say, hey, we got to action that right now. So everyone does have a different roadmap because guess what? Like there are no 2 people that are the same.
How does it work from an Australian government rebate perspective? Because I can't remember when it was. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, a personal story. I was having sort of pain around my upper chest, near my heart. And it would be like a sharp pain. And I wanted to go back and do some exercise. I hadn't done exercise for a while. And I wanted to go back, start going to the gym. My physiotherapist had a knee thing. He said, look, you need to go and get a stress test done. But when I went to the GP to get a referral for that, I got inundated with 1,000 questions because it was like she was really trying to figure out whether I really, really needed it. And without it ticking certain boxes, it was like nearly she was trying to convince me not to do it. So is that because that's a stress test, right? And I eventually got that done. I was fine.
Good.
And then there's the one where they can inject the serum.
Dye?
The dye. I didn't get that done. But I understand, my understanding is if there's no reason for you to get those tests done, GPs generally don't refer you to have them done. And is that because the government subsidises these costs? So if I had the money, why wouldn't I go and just do that every 2 or 3 years rather than wait? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? Is there a system issue there?
Yeah.
And how does it work?
I think there is a system issue. And this is speaking as someone who's trained as a GP. I'm a specialist GP.
Yeah.
I think there are 2 main, we'll call it blockers. Number one is cultural. The healthcare system that we have, which is, by the way, if you compare to other countries, is a very high-performing one, is a sick care system. So it's actually designed for when you get sick. And that structure is chicken or the egg as well, but that structure has created a culture where we're looking for people to get sick and we're waiting for people to get sick. And we say, we're going to get really good at treating you when you are sick. And we're trying to work out if you are sick or not, right? But that's actually based on symptoms. And your situation is very interesting, which is like you already had symptoms and someone was trying to work out, like, do you really need it? Well, okay, define need. Because this test is mainly a data gathering tool. Medicines, tests, they're all tools. Are we using the tool for the right outcome? And also, what is your risk appetite? But the structural aspect, which also, like crosses over with the cultural aspect, which is, I think it's critically important for us to have public health. I'm very, very happy for my tax dollars to go into public health. But you also have to define what things should be public health, right? So if you get hit by a car, if you had appendicitis, you have a bleed in your brain, like you get world-class care. In any capital city, I think, in Australia. I think you should just not pay $1 because you've got enough going on. And the goal there is for you not to die from this acute event. We do not want you to be killed by a car accident or a bleed in the brain or appendicitis. But when it's about preventing, my goal is not for you to save me when I get sick or for you to open a balloon in my arteries in my heart when I have a heart attack. Like, I do research with a lot of the top cardiologists in Melbourne. Like the things that they can do these days is just unbelievable. But you know what's better than that stuff? Never needing it.
Correct.
Right. So if your goal is, say, I want to live out my life, and this is the goal that we achieve, I can really confidently say, you can never say 100% in medicine, but like we can really achieve this for all of our members at Everlab. And to say, like, I think we can get you through a lifetime without having an unexpected heart attack or stroke. And we work backwards from there and say, all right, like we need to work out what your risks are before you even have any symptoms. So like even if you didn't have this chest thing, I would be asking these questions to say, what's your family history? What's your risk? Should we do this dye injection test? Is that a good trade-off for us?
And if I don't have you mentioned the need, if I don't have symptoms and maybe don't have the risk and I just want to have the test because is a subsidy by the government not there? Does the doctor decide?
The doctor doesn't really decide. Like, the doctor follows the rules set out by the payer, which in this case, we have a single payer, national insurance scheme called Medicare. So we just came through a election. I think everyone's seen the little green card and what Medicare is. I think fantastic system for reactive care. So if you want to access these scans in a proactive, I don't have any symptoms way, but I want to understand my risk, no, you cannot access the rebate. There is no item number for you to rebate on that. And that's okay. We refer for this scan very, very often for folks who are high risk. We've picked up so many folks with asymptomatic, so no symptoms, but blockages and plaque buildup in their arteries. Because the danger of, by the way, like number one killer of men in this country, blocked arteries and heart attacks. The reason why it's so dangerous is not just because it's common, but also because it causes no symptoms until the day you have a heart attack. 70% of people who have a heart attack have no symptoms or warning signs before the day it happens. But it is a predictable, detectable thing. So these tools are there. I understand the government does have to make very complex and challenging cost decisions. But doctors' jobs should not be limited to, if the government doesn't pay for it, then I don't think you need it.
No, I agree with that.
I think that's the key. And it's always worthwhile investing in your health.
And I actually think, and I'm maybe minority or majority, I'm actually not sure, but a lot of people don't know that they can actually just pay without the rebates to get these testings done. So a lot of my clients will spend a lot of money to improve their business. So we'll talk about, what are you going to invest? CapEx. So we'll go, okay, your business has made X dollars. How much are you going to set aside for capital expenditure this year, whether it's upgrading equipment or whether it's investing in a marketing coordinator, a marketing manager, or marketing dollars. And people will put aside money to grow their business. A lot of those guys and a lot of my clients are quite wealthy. If they knew that they could spend 20 grand a year, 100 grand a year, whatever the amount is, that allowed them to know that they could get all the testings from genetic testing to the cardiovascular testing, all the testing that will give you the data to prevent you from having a heart attack. But all you know is that you just need to pay more or pay for them yourself. I believe that they don't know that it's an option because when you go to the GP, not a lot of them are preventative type of thinking. I have seen some clients we've got some clients as doctors that theme their practices around preventative medicine. But even then, it's not disclosed as to how open it is in terms of how much money you can spend to get a lot of this stuff done. And I'm not saying this should only be accessible to people that can afford it, but I think there is a little hidden thing in the world or in Australia that people don't know that they can access it by paying for it. And I think more people would pay for it knowing that it exists. And I guess
that's a good point, actually.
And I guess I'm not sure the education that you put behind Everlab to your patients around educating them on what's available to them that you can get access to these things.
Just because you have money doesn't mean you should spend it frivolously either.
100%.
And so it's actually about that. That's why it's so important to say, what are your goals? How do we achieve it? How do we achieve it at the lowest possible cost? And there is a barrier there, which is like education, which if folks think I can't access any preventative focused services or testing because Medicare doesn't pay for it, well, that's an education piece. I think people should know that that's accessible. But once it is accessible, like I said earlier, like these are not spa treatments, right?
No.
So here's the test that I ask myself for all of my members, and this is what I expect of my doctors as well, which is even if the cost was zero, is this a good idea for us to do? And that's a great way to test to say, is this something that this person needs? So we have folks who are like, in their early 20s, or they might have read about this test. Like, I really want to get that test. And I say, look, it should be guided by the doctor and say, like, is this the best place for us to spend this cost? They say, oh, like, I have plenty of money. Well, it's not even about financial cost because some of these tests have a bit of radiation. Of course, we use the lowest possible dose of radiation, but like, there's nothing good about it, right? It's a trade-off. We give you an injection of dye. You could have an allergic reaction to the dye. That's a risk that we're taking on to get the answer that then guides your treatment, that then guides our decisions so that we can make the best decisions for our goals. So I think knowing that there's access is important, but having the guidance to say what is the right decision making. Because like I see this all the time. Folks come in to see me and they say, I saw that Kim Kardashian and Chris Hemsworth, they got like these whole body MRIs and I want to get whole body cancer screening as well. And I say, well, yes, we offer that, but I want to make sure that we're making a good decision here because these aren't cheap studies. And like they're also not enjoyable studies, right? They're okay. We make the experience quite palatable. But if you're spending that amount of money, we want to make sure that you're spending at the highest ROI places because some folks say instead of spending say $3,000 on some tests, maybe we should go and do something else that's high ROI. For instance, genetic testing. For some folks, it might be fertility testing. For some folks, it might be investing more heavily in physical improvement. And it's really about like identifying what those things are. Some folks need a colonoscopy. Like bowel cancer is massively on the rise. There was a program just on Four Corners about it as well. I've been talking about this for years. Bowel cancer is now the deadliest cancer for Australians aged between 25 and 44. So when I started medical school, I don't remember seeing folks getting bowel cancer in their 30s. Now, ask around. A lot of people just know someone in their circle. Like I've personally had known someone who died in their early 30s from bowel cancer. So like the rates are going up. If we want to protect you from cancer, what's the biggest ROI items for you? And we list it out and it's up to you to say like, how far down the line should we go? So if someone who's 21 says, I want this heart scan, well, so like we do need someone to guide these decisions. If you said, hey, I want you to refer me for an operation where you cut my belly open and just have a look inside and see what's going on there, well, I would have to say no because the risks are too high, the cost is too high. But if we say, if we want to have a look inside the abdomen, we do have other avenues to say we're screening for solid organ tumours, which is massively on the rise, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer. We do have ways to screen for that, but it's also my job to say, all right, like where are our opportunities? Bowel cancer is going to be higher risk for you than kidney cancer, for example. So like we want to act based on, we should always be goal focused and we shouldn't be health activity focused. You can always do more tests.
I want to just ask around what people can do without the testing. So one of the things that's high on the rise around content that I've been listening to is having more muscle mass. So having more muscle mass is longevity. How important is building muscle mass, going to the gym and actually growing those muscles that you need every day?
If you look at the evidence, the body of evidence that's out there, there's basically no single activity that gives you bigger ROI for long-term health than exercise. So for example, every member that comes through Everlab, we actually measure their VO2 max, which is an aerobic performance metric. It's almost like testing the engine of a car, right? Like how much oxygen can you consume? And some people, like it caps out, right? So that is a performance-based test. And the higher your VO2 max, the lower your mortality rate, just all-cause mortality. You're just simply less likely to die if you are very, quote-unquote, aerobically fit. So we want to actually measure that for folks and benchmark them and say, like, where are we at? And based on their circumstances, do we move that up or do we focus on moving that up or down? Muscle mass, same. Grip strength, right? Correlated with lower rates of dementia. Having strong musculature really helps your metabolic health, so you're less likely to get diabetes. But also it's great for, again, all of your later in life function. Muscle in itself is a type of capital. And I often say to folks, hey, like after the age of 40, the cost of you building up or banking muscle per gram of muscle, the cost is going to start going higher and higher. How hard you need to work out, how much protein you need to consume, per gram of muscle you put on is going to get higher and higher. So that's a higher cost. And also that's a stage of life when folks say, my cholesterol's high. Some folks are already putting a bit of plaque down in the arteries. So, well, like now I can't have too much like animal-based protein because I'm also watching my cholesterol. And there's a lot of obviously nuance there. So we're here to also help you thread the needle, but very important to invest early. So exercise by far, whether if it's building up muscle or it's building up your aerobic performance, really, really important to invest in. That's one of the biggest levers you can pull. And the other one is more of a hidden one. If you think about the 3 pillars of health, it's exercise, what you put into your body, and sleep. Sleep is a huge focus that I think people miss out on because you're unconscious when it happens, right? The other two, like if you eat a packet of Tim Tams, like you did the wrong thing, right? So, if you're not going to the gym or you are going to the gym, you know what you're doing. But a lot of folks actually have suboptimal sleep. So it could be allergy driven. We pick up a lot of allergies, especially in Melbourne. We pick up a lot of allergies that cause inflammation in the nasal airway. And the impact is not just, I got a sniffly nose and I sneeze and I get watery eyes. You might snore, you breathe through your mouth. It decreases the quality of your sleep while you're asleep. And over months and years, that's a big detractor to your everyday energy levels and function. But also it's a massive risk for other chronic diseases. So those are probably the big things.
Let's touch sleep because I'm an early sleeper and an early waker, and I do love my sleep. I've been wanting to invest in a Ring or the Whoop. What's your thoughts on trying to track sleep? Are those products, do they measure sleep well? If I want to get on this journey of trying to get better sleep, what's the first place I go, or what's the routine that I go for?
I mean, let's take a high ROI, low cost approach, right?
Yeah.
So this is
this
is it in action, right? Look, it's not too expensive, but it's about evaluating the value of the tool.
Okay.
Right. So wearing the device does not help you sleep better. What it does is it can give you some metrics. And often folks say, data not measured, data is not improved, right? So I'll give you a simple protocol that I often get our Everlab members to do, which is called a 3-2-1 protocol. Don't eat 3 hours before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like no snacking, like finish dinner, make sure there's 3-hour gap between you eating and going to sleep. 2 hours before going to sleep, don't have any fluids. 1 hour before sleep, don't look at any screens. I give this advice a lot. I got to tell you, I don't always do it because I'm often working late at night. My kids are asleep and I got to catch up on some work. I think I'm not so good at I've got to say sorry to my wife, but I'm not so good at the screen one. But subjectively, it's very clear to me. I can feel, I can perceive. It's a qualitative metric, but I just feel much sharper in the morning. I do have better quality sleep. So you can also just measure qualitative experiences and just do some experiments by yourself. These are free experiments, right? There are also subtle signs you should look for if you're not getting good sleep. And this is really interesting, right? So do you wake up with a dry mouth? Do you have a little saliva patch on your pillow when you wake up? Because that tells me that you're mouth breathing, and you shouldn't be mouth breathing when you're sleeping because that's disordered breathing actually, right? When you go to the dentist, do they say you have any evidence of mouth breathing? Do you grind your teeth? There are a lot of subtle signs there. And there's an obvious sign, which is if your partner's just always,
the elbow.
Yeah, you cop the elbow and, so I think that's really important. And if you are a heavy snorer, really that should be carefully checked out. Now, coming to the devices, first of all, these devices are getting better and better. If you think about the latest Apple Watch, it can even pick up dangerous arrhythmias that can cause a stroke. So it can actually now, it's FDA approved to pick up things like atrial fibrillation, which is something that we also test for. So these devices are getting better and better. But the way that I think about them is that they're a tool. A tool can be very helpful or it can be deleterious, right? If you use it wrong, it might also be bad. And the tip that I have for folks is it's not all about this one tool. Don't let this be the be-all, end-all. So the example that I give is, a hammer's pretty good at hammering nails, but if you use it to install Windows, it's probably not as good. So it's really in how you use the tool. The data quality is not bad. I think it's quite good. It can capture things like heart rate variability. It does give you a sleep score, whether you use the Whoop or the Fitbit or the Oura Ring. A lot of our members use them. And I give them the same advice, which is, I'm interested to see your data. Even if the data is not amazing quality, as the generations go on, it will get better and better. But even if the data quality is not amazing, it is also consistent. So if you keep using a ruler that's off to measure everything, well, you do get a sense of, you still get a sense of like what's growing, what's not, right? So
Correct.
being able to track data over time, I think it is useful, but just be cautious and not the be all end all. And don't let it become a burden for you, because I've got some members who are like, their day's just ruined if they wake up and their sleep score's bad. And then you sort of structure your life around trying to hit this score, because a lot of folks, especially successful folks, right? They're just a sucker for a leaderboard, right? And I think just make sure that the tool works for you and you don't work for the tool. We often use medical grade testing, which is not like a wearable, but we would do sometimes hospital-based or sometimes in-home sleep studies to make sure people don't have things like obstructive sleep apnea or sleep disordered breathing. So there is a different level of quality of the data. But overall, like, I am supportive of it. I have seen folks who like have just like Thanos from the movies. Like, they're just like, I've got a bunch of wearables, I wear them all at the same time. For those cases, I'm like, I hope you're having fun, but like, just make sure you know that it's more entertainment than it is. Some people are product testing and they're just interested in this stuff, but don't be a slave to your tools. And one of the best markers of success is how you feel qualitatively, right? Not just quantitatively on things that we can measure. So if you notice that your mood is better, you're thinking sharper, you wake up, you're more refreshed. I think we've all had those feelings, right? So like if my kids don't wake me up at night and I do my 3-2-1 properly and I have a good night's sleep, I wake up, I am more refreshed. I do feel like I'm sharper, I'm making better decisions. And I think being perceptive that way is really valuable. And for the things that we do want to measure, whether if we're taking a photo, we want to look inside your brain, look inside your arteries, we want to measure your blood, we want to see your body composition, leave it to folks like us.
Yeah. Can you take us through a story of a patient, like a really success story where patient came in thinking they were going to go improve their health, and then by doing the genetic testing or the physical examination, you're able to potentially save someone's life much sooner? And can you take us through a story like that?
For sure. I mean, I've got endless stories here, right? So number one is probably cardiac. We've had young folks who came in just, I'm just here to like optimize, I'm a triathlete, I'm about to do this. I just want to measure my VO2 max. I want to like see how my musculature is going. I'm really about performance. But then turns out they might have like, increased risk genetically. Turns out they have like high cholesterol. For one of these folks, 37-year-old, we did the CT coronary angiogram for them with the dye test, and he's got mixed calcified and non-calcified plaque all up and down one of the major arteries. So picking that up at 37 means, that's not great. I think he was pretty shocked. I was a little bit surprised too. I should, in this business, I should learn not to be so surprised. But like, we still catch these cases. You can never fully predict them, right? You don't want to roll the dice. We can actually see. But once we see, we now direct his care properly. You know what? If it means earlier prescription medications, so be it. If it means another scan in 5 years, so be it. What are the right actions for you to yield that outcome? We want to be outcome focused, not health activity focused. And we have other folks who are like, no symptoms, come in, scan them, blocked arteries. We had one chap, I think it was late 50s, really strong family history. He was a South Asian Indian ancestry, which often have higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Put him through the scan. He didn't really want to do the scan. I was like, you're pretty high risk, you should do it. He's like, I'm good. I do 2 hours of yoga every day. I'm doing all the right things, right? I measure my cholesterol, and my cholesterol is pretty good. I've got it on an Excel spreadsheet, right? He had a scan. He wasn't even allowed to go home after the scan. The radiologist had to call me. He said, I don't know how this guy's walking around without chest pain or symptoms, but he's got 3 blocked arteries, just letting a sliver of blood through. And I don't think I can send this guy home. He ended up getting transferred to a private hospital and had triple bypass.
That is amazing. So what's a low-hanging fruit that we can do today? So for those business owners that are busy trying to build their financial capital, what advice do you have to them that haven't really put a lot of effort into their health? What sort of 1 or 2 things that they should be doing today to improve their health if they're not coming out to see you at Everlab?
I think the number one thing that everyone should be doing is just simply taking an interest in your health in a more data-driven way. And this is super interesting. I see a lot of folks at Everlab, our members, highly successful people across every industry. And if you think about how these folks got really successful, they're proactive, they're data-driven, they're strategic, they're goal focused. These are all folks who have OKRs and KPIs in their businesses and, you know, they're making forecasts, they're making bets. They've got a business intelligence person, right? So like they're super strategic and goal focused in other aspects of their lives. But again, it's like culturally, often these folks are just shooting from the hip when it comes to their health. They're like, oh, I heard from a guy at my office that he's doing intermittent fasting. I might give that a crack, right? Also, like I heard so-and-so's eating, you know, walnuts and dry blueberries. And like, you know, that might be good, but that shouldn't be how we make decisions because that's also a high-cost, low-yield way to action, right? So the best thing that I think folks can do is just simply take an interest and have a think about your family. What's your ancestry? What's your genetic? You don't need a genetic test to think about, oh, gosh, like, these diseases are running through my family. Because you know what else is similar to finance capital is that some people are born in Norway with a trust fund and some people are born in like Kabul, Afghanistan, right? So like your genetics is the capital that you're born with. So like sometimes you need to work harder to get more capital. And some people are just lucky, or some people are just fantastic genes. And so, like, you know, I don't really exercise, but my VO2 max shoots up the moment I do a little bit. My cholesterol is just naturally low. And there are folks like that. So that's why having a data-driven approach is so important. And just start by taking an interest. What runs in my family? What runs in my ancestry? Do I know a bit more about my genetics? Take a more of an interest in like thinking about your health. And then from there, you can take those actions. Have a conversation with your GP and say, I want to be a bit more prevention focused. I want to make this a thing, right? I want to come back once a year. So like at Everlab, we, you know, by standard, we test folks twice a year. At least get one test done, right? At least say, have that conversation, find a GP who can engage in that conversation. A lot of folks service their cars more often than they service their bodies. I mean, you can easily buy a new car, right? So, you know, they do their tax returns because the government forces them to. You know, the car dealership's always hounding you to go get your car serviced. Create a forcing function for yourself, find the right providers and say, hey, what's my biggest ROI in terms of keeping myself healthy? What else can I do? And of course, there are a lot of avenues to then go further down that line and say, I want a service that just does it all. So for instance, at Everlab, you know, we have a patient-facing app. We designed our own systems. We want to be able to engage you in an efficient, accessible way.
So I want to leave the podcast on one last bit is just how Everlab operates. So you mentioned the app, you mentioned the testing that you do, and you treat your patients as members, and they obviously have a sort of a member-based approach. Take us through a little bit of a journey of a patient that is going to be a patient of Everlab. What would they expect and what does that service look like? I'd love to get a bit of a, not a pitch, but an understanding of how you're different to your general practice.
We're personalised, we're prevention focused, we're data-driven, the way to access it, and we also want to make it as smooth and frictionless as possible for you. Hence the app, right? Hence a very digitized system. So you can sign up just by jumping onto our website and joining the waitlist. And when you come through, you download the app and you can basically do a lot of things on our app. We have a big support team. So if you need to talk to anyone, you can email, you can call. But we want it to be a super easy, streamlined service that you can do asynchronously. So at home, you can read the things, you can click through, you can give us consent so that our team then goes out and quite painstakingly finds all of your historical results. You know, data is power, right? So having the right data helps you make the right insights to make good decisions. So that's what you can expect. A lot of our doctor touch points. So you will have a primary doctor. We try to match you with the right doctor as well based on your needs. You can have access to other doctors on our team too, and our various doctors have different special interests. But we try to match you with the same doctor across your journey because you want to build that human relationship of trust as well. The doctor consults are done via video telehealth, which again makes it more accessible. You know, you don't have to go out somewhere and think about having to like book and sit somewhere, fill out some paper forms. And, you know, like we want to make it as seamless as possible. You can book all your appointments digitally. It goes into your calendar. And of course, you can't provide medicine without in-person touch points. So physical assessments, body screening, scans, bone density, body composition, all of which are done in person. So we have our own office across multiple major cities and in other cities. Like, so we operate Australia-wide now. Yep. We have specialist partners that we use as well. So whether if that's for MRI or the CTs or for lung cancer screening or CT coronary angiogram to check your heart, we want to make it as accessible as possible because we know that navigating healthcare is tricky. And we want to make it as simple as possible. And that's part of the lowest possible cost, right? Effort is also cost, right? So,
no, I love that. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line. It's been an amazing time spent with you. We haven't had a doctor talk about health and looking at our health capital for a long, long time on The Bottom Line. So for all those folks out there that focus on their financial capital, it's been a pleasure talking to you about our health capital, because if we don't have a health, everything else is meaningless. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to join me today.
that's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. This podcast was produced by accountancy firm Alexander Spencer. At Alexander Spencer, we've been helping business owners realise their goals since 1952. And we play a pivotal role in developing, implementing, and supervising the business goals and strategies of our clients. To find out how we can help your business succeed, head to our website, alexanderspencer.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of The Bottom Line, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Savan Tuna, and we'll be back next episode with more tips to help you transform your business. And that's The Bottom Line.